Today's Hit Music B1029. It is Logan and special guests in the studio here. They don't let me have a lot of special guests, let alone celebrities of this magnitude. Weird Al is in the studio.
Oh, please. Oh, please sit down. You're embarrassing me. Please.
You are easily you've taken you're number one now. The biggest celebrity I've gotten to interview here. You're number one.
Well,
who
was number two?
Now it is rapper Too Short.
I beat Too Short?
You beat Too Short.
Whoa.
That's pretty big,
I am honored.
So you're doing this show Friday night over at Elliot Hall. What's a Weird Al show like?
I'm waiting to find out. I'm going to surprise myself. No, for the people that have not had the Weird Al experience, and I feel truly sorry for those people, it is a multimedia rock and comedy extravaganza. I'm there on stage with the same band that I've had since the very beginning of my career. It's a high-energy rock and roll show, but we have a ton of costume changes. I think we have 3 more than Lady Gaga at this point.
Nice.
And a big LED screen in the background, which shows video clips and bits while we're playing and also while we're doing costume changes. So it's never a dull moment. There's a lot of stuff going on stage, very theatrical, a lot of production. It's a good time.
So you've been doing this for a long time. Well, you started out your first song at 16, I think I read, somewhere
something
around there?
like that. Yeah, well, I would send in tapes to the Dr. Demento show when I was in my teens, and they were really horrible and badly recorded. But the first one that ever actually made it onto vinyl was My Bologna, which was my parody of the Knack's My Sharona, which came out. I recorded that literally in the bathroom across the hall from my college campus radio station because I couldn't afford a recording studio. It was just me and the accordion in a bathroom, and that was it.
How do you come up with an idea like that? When you get started, I mean, was it just one of those things where like, you know what, I feel like I want to screw around a little bit, or does it just kind of come naturally? How does one just all of a sudden go, you know what, I want to do some parody songs for a while?
I don't think I was unlike any other kid in the universe that listens to the radio and starts changing the words around to amuse their friends. So it's just one of those phases that I haven't grown out of yet.
Okay. Now, you've been doing this for what? We're in, 3 decades roughly now? You
Something
did this
like that,
80s,
yeah.
90s, 2000s. And I'm sure each decade presents a different challenge. Which one did you find, or do you find the easiest to make the parodies of? Is there a decade where man, the 80s were just so much easier? Because I would think right now, there's a lot of prime targets for you right now, I got to think.
Well, you never run out of source material when you're doing parody. Because there's never been a point in my life where I've looked around at the pop landscape and thought, nothing to make fun of here. Because there's always something ridiculous about pop culture. It's a little bit more difficult now just from the standpoint that I have a lot of competition. There's 10 million people on YouTube also doing amateur song parodies. So, I like to think that my stuff is quality, but, it's a little disconcerting to know that I will probably be the 10,000th person to do a parody of any given song at this point.
Now, you're working on a new, I saw on TMZ, you said you're working on a new album
if
right now.
If TMZ says it, it must be true.
I saw they caught you going into a building or something there. You're like, yeah, I'm working on a new album. I was like, oh, that's fantastic because he's going to be here next week.
It wasn't any kind of secret. If you follow me on any kind of social media at all, I've been working on an album. But yes, in fact, the album is half done. The originals are in the can. I'm just now focusing my gaze toward the parodies, and I don't know when the album's coming out. I'm hoping next year sometime. But yeah, it's in the works.
Can you tell us, is there an artist in particular?
I can tell you nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing!
Ah, come on.
But
now.
You'll be the first person I tell those. As soon as it's ready, I'll let you know.
I am very, very excited because I still remember when I was a kid, the first one I ever heard was the Michael Jackson, Fat.
Oh, yes.
And I saw the video for that, and of course, I was probably like 7, 8, and of course.
I was about the same age, yeah.
So that totally appealed to me. I remember burning through, that was that 3D? Was that the album that was?
Well, that was Eat It. You're probably getting that confused,
yeah.
But Eat It was in 3D, and a couple years later, Fat came out.
That's right. Okay, so I just remember the Michael Jackson. Do you have an artist that you've done over the years where you're like, that's my favorite, that's my favorite guy to go to do a parody song?
Well, for a long time, that was Michael Jackson. I mean, he basically he opened a lot of doors for me in a way because before I did Eat It, it was difficult for me to get permission from artists. And, legally I don't necessarily need to, but I've always found, I want to take the high road. I want to make sure that they're in on the joke, and I want to make sure I have their blessing. And before Michael Jackson, it was hard to get phone calls returned. My manager would call up and say, "Hi, I represent Weird Al Yankovic." And they'd say, "Oh, I'm so sorry." But when Michael Jackson gave his permission, all of a sudden people were like, well, if it's okay with Michael Jackson, maybe.
That's a pretty good seal of approval.
Right, exactly,
right there.
yeah.
And I noticed there are some artists that clearly get it, and there are some artists that just don't seem to get it. I know you've had the famous thing with Coolio, which I've read you've smoothed over that. You guys are cool now, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was 1996. So that was a lot of water's gone under that bridge. And I ran into Coolio a few years ago at some kind of public function, and, we hugged it out. Everything's fine.
Yeah, that's very nice. I'm glad that you guys could reform that bond. And I thought that's a great song. Amish Paradise was fantastic.
Yeah, one of my faves. Absolutely. Still a big
Amish definitely did a great job. Is there anybody that got an artist where you're like, I really want to try to do something, but you just haven't been able to tackle it yet?
There's a lot of people on that list. I mean, for one reason or another, the timing hasn't worked out, or I haven't been able to come up with a good enough idea. I mean, just look at the top of the Billboard charts for this last year, and you'll see a lot of people that I'd like to take a shot at, and maybe I will. But they all have to take a number. I'll get to them eventually.
There you go. We're all waiting for the day where you just completely roast Bieber. You know that, right? We're all just like fingers crossed. Come on,
yeah.
let's get Bieber.
He's been in the polka medley. He was on the polka medley on the last album. But yeah, he deserves his own parody at some point.
So you're still doing the polka medleys where you do they're like a little bit of the covers and stuff, right?
Yes, like a dozen or so rock tunes done polka style, the way God intended. And
hey, I'm a Western PA guy. You don't have to talk to me about polka. My grandmother used to crank that stuff up all the time. I know all about the polka.
The angst really comes through when you hear it with a accordion and tuba background. But yeah, I mean, I tried a couple albums without a polka medley, and the fans were up in arms like, "We need our polka. What's wrong with you?" So I can't get away from it. The fans want their polka medleys.
We're talking to Weird Al. He's got the show over at Elliot Hall of Music on Friday night. Tickets are on sale now. You've been around for just so long in doing this. Are you kind of surprised? I know you mentioned YouTube earlier, but you would think music's such a copycat business now. Nobody's really been able to replicate what you've done. I mean, there are some people that are kind of close, but you really, I mean, the body of work that you have, nobody's really come close yet, have they?
Well, I mean, I've got the track record, I guess. I mean, it started, in the early 80s, and it's still hanging out there. So I sort of became the brand name for parodies. Like back when Napster started out.
Oh, yeah, I remember downloading some stuff, and then, I didn't download some stuff. Some other people that I know.
Of course, yes, you
stuff.
heard of people that did that.
That's how it worked, and it'll say, the songs are mislabeled a lot of times, but anytime it's a parody, that had your name on it.
Of course, obviously, any parody that anybody's ever written is by me. Which, I got the credit and or blame for a lot of material back when Napster was starting out. And that still goes on to this day. Hey, remember when you did that song about the Taco Bell dog? No, I didn't do that. Sure you did. I downloaded it on Napster. Well, it wasn't me.
Yeah, But that's kind of the curse and the blessing that you get.
Right.
When you ascend to the level that you're at. Is there anybody now... because I'm sure you get sent or you hear a lot of these other people that try to do the parodies. Is there anybody right now that you're like, hey, you know what, that could be that's for the next generation right there?
Well, there's a lot of people that do funny music that I think are just brilliant. I love The Lonely Island.
They're
I
fantastic.
love Flight of the Conchords, Tenacious D. There's a lot of people, I mean, not necessarily parodies, but I mean, there's a lot of people that do comedy and music, which is great. Jonathan Colton, Paul and Storm, Garfunkel and Oates. There's just and a lot of them are my friends, and there's people online. The Key of Awesome does great stuff online. So yeah, there's definitely people out there.
But there's only one polka guy, and he's right here in the studio. And you can go see him Friday night over at Elliot Hall of Music, the one and only Weird Al. Thank you so much, buddy.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Appreciate it.